You know that folder. The one with the novel you started 3 years ago, the half-edited video, the business plan. None of those things failed because you weren't talented enough. They died because you never let them be bad long enough to get good. In the next few minutes, I'm going to give you a dead simple daily system stolen straight from a comedian who wrote 363 terrible jokes a year that will finally get you to stop deleting and start finishing. By the time this video ends, you'll have a repeatable ritual that practically forces your worst work to evolve into something you're proud of. No waiting for motivation, no more invisible masterpieces, no more wasting time. Let's start. Late 1970s, a young stand-up comedian named Jerry Seinfeld buys a large wall calendar and a red marker. His idea: write jokes every day, then draw a big red X over that date. No word count targets, no quality filter, no audience. Just a growing chain of X's he refuses to break. What did the calendar provide? Motivation? Nah, protection. The chain didn't care if the joke was hacky, derivative, or destined for the trash. It only tracked one thing. Did you show up? The very act of marking that X gave Seinfeld a daily permission slip to produce garbage. And that permission is what kept him writing long after everyone else quit. You're sitting on a draft, a proposal, a creative project, a piece of writing you've been nursing for months. Every time you open it, a familiar voice whispers, "Not good enough, not yet." So you close the tab, reorganize your desk. You promise yourself tomorrow will be the day. 6 months later, the file still sits unsent. This feels like self-preservation. In reality, you're protecting your ego from lousy output. Every deleted draft is an opportunity lost to put out your voice in the universe. Each time you hide your work, the lack of feedback widens the gap between what you can produce and what you want to produce. This is a case of your taste outstripping your current ability. The only cure is to put yourself and your work out there, no matter how crappy you think it is. If there is something you want to say to the world, say it. In a moment of candor, Seinfeld revealed something startling. After a full year of writing every single day, 365 red X's, he might end up with exactly 2 jokes that actually landed on stage. 2 out of hundreds of attempts. That's a failure rate north of 90%. He needed to get the bad jokes out to get to the good ones. The daily act of churning through setups that went nowhere, punchlines that fizzled, observations that felt smart in a coffee shop and stupid under a spotlight. That messy, unglamorous volume is what loosened his mind enough for the occasional perfect bit to sprout. You cannot cherry-pick gold from an empty stream. The volume is not a detour, it is the path. Which brings us back to that folder on your computer. Your own dead jokes are piling up where no one can see. A graveyard of half-titles, abandoned intros, voice memos you never replayed. Each time you bury a draft before it can breathe, you reinforce a silent belief that your work must emerge fully formed to be valid. You wait, and you wait, and the waiting becomes the identity. What if you stopped measuring yourself by, "Is this brilliant?" and started measuring yourself by, "Did I ship something imperfect this week?" Suddenly, your terrible first attempts stop being evidence against your potential. They become proof you're actually in the arena. Each clumsy, half-baked piece you release is a red X on an invisible calendar, a marker not of talent, but of courage. And courage, unlike talent, compounds every time you exercise it. The volume of your cringe-worthy output is not a tax you pay on the road to greatness. It is greatness in its unfinished form. The stand-up special you love was carved from 1,000 dead jokes. The iconic product was version 37 of something that barely functioned. The only guaranteed way to never create something remarkable is to stop yourself from creating something unremarkable first. This grinds against everything we were taught. In school, Mistakes lowered your average. You learned to fear turning in anything less than an A. But the creative world operates on an entirely different logic. So how do you operationalize this before you close the browser? You lower the bar for what you'll let escape. Way lower. Call it your permission to suck policy. Ship something every single week, regardless of how unfinished it feels. The content of what you ship matters less than the fact that you shipped it. The act of shipping generates the very motivation you've been waiting for. Not because applause will rain down. Early on, the response will likely be silence. But finishing a thing, pressing publish, drawing your own red X, that completion creates a biochemical and psychological momentum. Action comes first. Inspiration trails behind like exhaust. You stop waiting to feel ready, and you start feeling ready because you're moving. Seinfeld understood this at a bone-deep level. He was simply a person who writes every day without drama, without self-congratulation, without needing to feel like it. Bad days stopped being existential threats. They just became Tuesdays. The unbroken chain didn't produce brilliance directly. It produced a person capable of brilliance through sheer accumulated exposure to the work. By the late 1980s, Seinfeld co-created a sitcom that ran 9 seasons, was named the greatest TV show of all time by multiple publications, and by 1998 earned him $267 million in a single year. Even a decade later, he was pulling in $85 million annually. None of that happened because Jerry Seinfeld sat down and tried to write a billion-dollar joke. It happened because he wrote 1,000 dumb ones and refused to break the chain. The fame, the fortune, they were byproducts for a man in love with the daily, unglamorous act of showing up to a blank page, even when 99% of what he produced would vanish into history. As you start living this way, you stop applying an impossible standard you would never impose on a friend. Once you genuinely internalize permission to be average, you start creating from curiosity instead of terror. You experiment. You try weird experiments, questionable formats, bold moves you'd never touch if you were afraid of bruising your reputation. Most of these will flop. That's the agreement you make with the process. But the freedom to flop unlocks a door that perfectionism keeps triple bolted. And occasionally, one of them connects in a way your careful, safe work never could. That moment is a statistical inevitability when your output volume is high enough. Your self-worth gradually decouples from the quality of any single piece. A bad day doesn't shake your identity. A good day doesn't inflate your ego into something fragile that needs constant defending. You just keep making things. That's the real skill nobody teaches. The emotional stability to produce mediocre work in public until, slowly and almost imperceptibly, it becomes exceptional. Seinfeld is in his 70s now. He still tours. He still writes. The game never ended because he was never playing for a final trophy. He was playing for the next red X. That's the infinite game the greats instinctively understand. They fall in love with the process so deeply that the Grammys, the fortunes, the awards become almost beside the point, pleasant side effects of a life spent immersed in the work itself. The real prize, then, isn't the thing you're building. It's the person you become while building it. Someone who can tolerate embarrassment without retreating, face a blank page without flinching, and ship work even while the inner critic screams for you to stop. That person is the true creation, and every terrible, half-baked, shippable draft is a brick in their foundation.